Welcome to today's Explainer. We are doing something really cool today. We're actually shadowing a real-world network deployment to bridge that gap between textbook theory and practical command line implementation. We're diving deep into Chapter 10 of our source material, and it is fascinating. We'll be walking through actual examples to see exactly how to set up default routes and ensure your internal networks can actually talk to the outside world.
So let's kick this up by imagining a little data packet. It's trying to leave your local network, but it suddenly discovers it has no specific route, and it desperately needs an escape plan. What actually happens when your router is handed a destination IP it has literally never seen before? Well, without a safety net, that packet is simply dropped. It's just gone. Poof. And that is exactly why networking requires some really intentional design for the unknown.
Here's our roadmap for today. First up, the gateway of last resort. Second, edge router configuration. Third, spreading routes via OSPF. Fourth, EIGRP and fast failovers. And finally, eBGP, connecting to ISPs.
All right, Section 1, Gateway of Last Resort, the Network Escape Hatch.
The absolute foundational command for edge routing is the gateway of last resort. You configure this using IP route 0.0.0.0, 0.0.0.0, followed right after by the next hop IP. This string of zeros is your universal catch-all for any destination that isn't explicitly listed in the routing table. You can kind of think of this gateway like a corporate mailroom's return to sender bin. It basically catches every single envelope that has an unknown address. So instead of just dropping the packet, the router forwards it onto the ISP, basically trusting that the internet knows what to do with it.
Moving right along to Section 2, Edge Router Configuration, Step by Step.
As we get into the meat of Chapter 10 from our source material, which covers default routes and redistribution, we learn how to translate that whole mailroom concept into actual command line syntax. And what's really interesting here is that configuring it is only half the job. Verifying it, that's the absolutely critical second half. You can't just type in the commands and blindly assume they worked. So you literally have to follow this exact four-step sequence to make sure your edge router can talk to the ISP and that it's actually sharing this escape route with the rest of your internal network. First, you configure the default route pointing to your ISP's next hop. Second, you immediately run show IP route to verify it actually took hold. Third, you hop into your dynamic protocol and redistribute that route. And fourth, you log into an internal router just to confirm it actually learned that route from the edge device.
Now, when you run that show IP route command on the job, you're usually hit with a giant wall of text, right? The source material breaks down the absolute essentials for us. An S with an asterisk next to it means a static candidate default route. A D stands for a route learned via EIGRP. That's the Enhanced Interior Gateway Routing Protocol. And an O indicates a route learned through OSPF, the Open Shortest Path First Protocol.
There's a key quote from the text that you absolutely have to drill into your memory. The asterisk denotes the active candidate default route. It turns out, seeing that /s is your ultimate visual proof that the default route is actively installed. If you look and only see an S without that little asterisk, any packets bound for the internet are simply going to drop.
Okay, on to Section 3, Spreading Routes via OSPF, Sharing the Knowledge.
Because think about it, having a default route on your edge router doesn't actually help the rest of the building if they have no idea it exists. And that brings us to a magic little command, default information originate. By injecting this specific command into your OSPF configuration, it automatically tells all your internal routers exactly where that internet gateway is. You literally only have to type it once on the edge router, and OSPF does all the heavy lifting of carrying that route to every single switch and router in your autonomous system.
But to make that happen, OSPF has to be brought up correctly in the first place. The complete real-world bring-up sequence goes like this. You enter global config, start the OSPF process, manually assign a stable router ID, and then advertise your connected networks using wildcard masks. And hey, assigning a loopback address as the router ID is a fantastic trick. It keeps your OSPF adjacency totally stable because it remains consistent even if your physical interfaces start flapping.
Section 4, EIGRP and fast failovers, speeding up recovery.
Now, OSPF is great, for sure, but EIGRP, it brings a totally different kind of speed to the table. Standard routing protocols often rely on metric-based calculations, which can take some real time to converge when a link goes down. But EIGRP uses the dual algorithm, which pre-calculates backup paths called feasible successors. It's pretty brilliant. It enables nearly instantaneous failover because all the math is already done and just waiting there in the topology table. But you know, setting it up is just one part of the job. Fixing it when it inevitably breaks? That's the real test. There are basically 3 pillars of EIGRP troubleshooting you need to know. First, you show IP-EIGRP neighbors to check if your routers are even talking to each other. Second, you show IP-EIGRP topology to see if those backup successors are ready to go. And third, you show IP route EIGRP to verify the final routes marked with a D made it into the routing table. Following this systematic approach makes diagnosing fault domains so much easier.
And finally, Section 5, eBGP, connecting to ISPs.
For our final real-world deployment task, we're stepping outside our internal network to peer directly with an ISP, and the source material makes a really critical distinction here. BGP is policy-based, not metric-based. Unlike your internal protocols, the Border Gateway Protocol is all about enforcing business rules, cost, and autonomous system paths to decide which ISP gets your traffic. It is not just looking for raw link speed.
Let's look at the exact steps to build this eBGP peering session. Step 1, you enter the BGP process using your autonomous system number. Step 2, you explicitly define the ISP neighbor's IP and their remote AS. Step 3, you advertise your specific IP prefix with the network mask command. When you're setting this up, follow these precise steps, but make absolutely sure your local IP block actually exists in your routing table before trying to advertise it. If you try to advertise a prefix in BGP that isn't actively in your local routing table, BGP will just completely ignore the command.
Like we've been saying all along, verification is absolutely key here. The ultimate check is to use Show BGP Summary and look for the state to reach Established. Running this confirms your policy-based internet routing is finally up and running. If it says active or idle, well, you still have some troubleshooting work to do.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, all the way from the gateway of last resort up to eBGP peering. But here is a really fascinating thought to leave you with from the text. If your edge router lost its default route and your eBGP failed simultaneously, would your internal routing protocols actually know how to survive that isolation? As you apply these concepts in your own command line environments, ask yourself that final troubleshooting question. It'll definitely keep you on your toes. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.